Hey everyone, so today we are going to be talking about the case of Josiah DJ Lawson. This case is going to upset you. It's going to make you wonder why there is just like no movement in this case. It's going to make you just it's going to make you scream. When I read this, I was incredibly upset because to me what happened was so obvious. But apparently it wasn't that way for investigators. So just be prepared because you're going to be upset. But all the links I used for research will be down below. And let's go ahead and get into this. This is going to be a summarized version of what happened because there's a lot of, not necessarily in the investigation part of it, but there's a lot of information in this case. You'll see when I get there. I know I'm like being really confusing right now. Let's just get into it. You'll see what I'm talking about. So, in 2017, David Josiah Lawson, or DJ, was a student at Humboldt State University with big plans for his future. He was the first person in his family to go to college and was majoring in criminal justice with plans to become a lawyer and later enter politics. Towards the end of his sophomore year, he'd been at a party with his girlfriend when a fight broke out. Josiah would be fatally stabbed. This part is from the audio scanner traffic, and there was an article with basically the full audio scanner traffic on there. So that is what this is going to be coming from. And then we're going to go into what Josiah's girlfriends has happened from like the witnesses, and that's just kind of how we're going to go about this. With some stuff sprinkled in with like quotes from people as well. So audio scanner traffic recorded on April 15th from 3 to 4 a.m. documents a series of officer/dispatcher exchanges. First, police at the scene variously reported, quote, a very aggressive crowd, a large group of angry individuals, and possible violence involved. Within 2 to 4 minutes post 3 a.m., police radioed that a woman had been stabbed, that multiple units were responding, and that Arcata Medical had been alerted. Shortly thereafter came word via the California Highway Patrol of, quote, at least one report that a man was down, end quote. So this would be in reference to Josiah, and the wounded female may have been his girlfriend, who was reportedly stabbed twice on the arm. Her name is Renalyn, or Ren, as she is called throughout this article. So between 3:08 and 3:10 a.m., Arcata police confirmed that the scene was secure and that CPR was in progress. A minute or so later, officers reported that the scene was secure and that one patient was receiving CPR. Shortly before 3:30 a.m., a female officer radioed for the second time. It says, quote, I think I found the weapon, end quote. Apparently, this weapon was a knife that was allegedly wielded by Kyle Zollner. Zollner, I think is how you say his name, who admitted to being in a fight with Josiah, and he would be charged with murder and would later plead not guilty to the charge because, of course, he would. So the second half of the hour-long scanner audio carries a number of transmissions pertaining to the stabbing. The exchanges concern routine matters, a disabled vehicle, license tag checks, and so on. So the crime scene quietly quieted down. There were no more reports of aggressive behavior or angry individuals or any suggestions of violence. The scanner traffic was also devoid of any insight if the stabbing was accidental, intentional, or self-defense. An eyewitness said that the fight centered on a missing iPhone that created a fight between two girls, one of them being Josiah's girlfriend. Men and women were said to have joined in on the fight, and one of the women unleashed a mace attack. So, like, the mace you spray, like pepper spray. This cell phone would later be found. Josiah's family believes that this was also racially motivated. as Zollner's girlfriend, Lila Ortega. She said, quote, "I hope that N-word dies," end quote. So she's just fucking disgusting. And she was saying this as Josiah was on the ground, dying. Despicable human beings. Anyways, Kyle Zollner, I cannot pronounce his last name for the life of me, but he would be arrested, but was shortly released after. His family also believes that Josiah's family believes that there has been a series of cover-ups. Because there have been 3 different police chiefs, botched investigations, and have been examples of systemic racism and conflicts of interest by the city of Arcata and the Humboldt County DA's office. The National Police Foundation investigated the handling of the murder and published its findings in a 67-page report in which they found gross incompetence and mishandling by first responders. And keep the police foundation in mind because we're actually going to go back to that later into more detail. So, in both the preliminary hearing and subsequent grand jury procedure, the DA's office acted as a defense for the murder. A juror broke their silence and spoke about the racism and injustice within the trial. The juror says that Assistant DA Joel Buckingham pushed for self-defense finding rather than a conviction. He also appeared to intentionally confuse jurors when presenting the case. So from the get-go, it sounds like they are trying to protect Zollner, and that they have something that they're trying to push. And that's disgusting because they're not supposed to be acting as a defense for Zollner. They're not supposed to be doing that. They're not supposed to be intentionally confusing the jury either. So getting into what Wren says happened, and remember Wren is Josiah's girlfriend. So she would testify on April 15th, 2017, around 2 a.m., that she and Josiah, a friend named Annalicia, and 2 brothers named Kyle and Christoph Castillo went to the party at 1120 Spear Avenue just before 3. Their group decided to leave. When they stepped out of the front door, they encountered the girlfriend of Kyle Zollner, Lila Ortega, don't know how you say your name, and their 3 friends. Kyle Zollner told the group that Lila misplaced her phone. Wren says Lila accused her and Kyle Castillo of stealing the phone and that she had demanded that they turn out their pockets. And so a quote from Kyle Castillo, he says, "I don't say anything to her. I say something to Zollner though. I told him, yo, can you just tell her to relax? Because she really doesn't know me like that, and for her to accuse me of something like that, that's pretty deep," end quote. After that, they say a fight broke up between Wren and Lila, which caused Josiah and Zollner to fight. After a few minutes, the fighting ended and the 2 groups parted ways. Josiah and Wren and Castillo brothers walked away from the house, and the other group stayed near the front of the house. Once they reached the street, Wren says she realized she'd been pepper sprayed. She said her face was burning and turned back towards the house where she confronted Lila and her friends. Around this time, a man named Paris Wright walked out of the house and toward the end of the driveway where he saw Josiah standing on Spear Avenue. Paris Wright testified that he told Josiah that Wren was arguing with the 2 girls, but it wasn't serious, and he says that he remembers Josiah saying, "Okay, cool, I'm just gonna go get her and we're gonna leave." Paris Wright then walks towards his car, but turned around when he heard screams coming from the house. When he got closer, he saw Josiah and Zollner wrestling in the grass behind another car. He saw Josiah laying on his back with Zollner's back on his chest. Josiah had one arm around Zollner's neck and the other around Zollner's arms. Wright says he tried to separate them to defuse the situation, and he would be able to separate them, and then he saw blood. He lifted up Josiah's shirt and saw a wound on his left side close to his hip. Wren found Josiah laying Laying on the ground in the bushes, another friend was applying pressure to Josiah's wounds as police arrived on the scene. After 50 minutes, an ambulance took Josiah to the hospital. Charmaine, Josiah's mom, received a call from Annalicia that her son had been stabbed. She initially thought he had been nicked by the knife, but not but he had actually been stabbed multiple times, and once was actually to the heart, and she was not aware of that. So she was trying to make her way to Arcata when around 4 a.m. Arcata police called her and told her that Josiah was dead. And I cannot imagine how she had to have felt, because she was not close to Arcata at the time. And to know that something happened to your son, and you don't think it's like anything super serious, and then you get the call that your son is dead. That is absolutely heartbreaking. So Zollner's preliminary hearing began on May 1st, 2017, to see if there was enough evidence to go to trial. According to court transcripts, a witness named Jason Martinez testified that he saw Josiah and someone else who he couldn't identify in a confrontation. And this is a quote from Jason Martinez, and he says, "As soon as I hear, 'oh shit, he has a knife,' I look up, and the person that was talking to Josiah just takes his right hand, and I see him go one on the left lower part of his stomach, and another one on his chest." End quote. So to me, that sounds like he saw Zollner actually stabbing Josiah. Now keep keep this part in mind, because this is going to come up as well. So a 10-inch kitchen knife was found under the car where Zollner and Josiah fought. Casey Gleaton, a friend of Zollner who was at the party, said that the next day she was at the apartment of Leila and Zollner when she remembers Leila went outside to their car and came back in with a bag of chef's knives, and that one was missing. There should have been 4, but there were only 3. On May 5th, 2017, Judge Dale Reinholdson dismissed the charges against Zollner. He said that there was insufficient evidence for the case to advance to a jury trial. He said that witnesses contradicted each other, that a bulk of the evidence provided was still being analyzed, that no one directly saw the stabbing, and that there was no proof that the knife was Zollner's. So I just want to immediately discuss this, and I have some questions. Okay, so no one saw. So was Martinez hallucinating? Like, was he just seeing shit? Did he just completely make something up? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you saying he's lying? Because to me, what he said when he testified sounds like he saw Zollner stab Josiah. And he got the 2 areas correct. The one on the lower left side and the one near his heart. So he obviously saw something. So you're just going to completely disregard that. If we're going to completely disregard that, what is the point of witness testimony? You know what I'm saying? And the knife wasn't Zollner's. So are you trying to say that Josiah just took a knife and stabbed himself? You were saying that he decided to stab himself in this fight. What are you saying? So there's witnesses saying they saw Josiah and Zollner fighting. Once they're separated, there's blood. Are you trying to say that he stabbed himself during this fight and was blaming it on Zollner? Like, what are you saying? He was clearly stabbed during the fight, and who was he fighting with? Zollner. And a knife was later missing from the bag that Leila had, so I don't know, Judge. Maybe put 2 and 2 together. You dumb fucking... Oh, God. Judge Dale Reinholdson is a fucking dumbass. Like, does this man not have common sense? Can he not put 2 and 2 together? Like, I don't know about you, but just based on what I'm reading you, which is a very summarized version, there's absolutely enough to go to trial. As for evidence still being analyzed, why are we already going to a preliminary hearing? To see if this can go to a trial. Why don't we wait until the evidence is ready, once the evidence has been analyzed, so that we have everything? That way all evidence can be used in the preliminary hearing, and then you can make an actual decision based on what you actually have, not just this little shit. You know what I'm saying? So I have a lot of issues with Judge Dale Reinholdson and his decision, because none of that what he said makes sense. I just based on this, I find Zollner to be extremely suspicious. I didn't see anything conflicting in the testimonies from witnesses. Something about him is just rubbing me the wrong way, because what the actual fuck? Do you get what I'm saying? Moving on. I'm just going to move on from that, because if I keep going, I'm not going to be able to stop. So, in February 2019, Humboldt County DA Maggie Fleming reviewed the evidence and commissioned a criminal grand jury. The 19-member jury heard from 25 witnesses and forensic analysts. They learned about the fight and that Zollner's DNA was found on the weapon that killed Josiah. Zollner's DNA was found on the murder weapon. But that murder weapon did not belong to Zollner. Zollner didn't do it, according to Judge Dale. Just saying. We're going back to that. His DNA was found on the weapon that killed Josiah. They learned about that, okay? 12 of the jurors were needed to vote for the charges for the case to proceed, but they decided not to indict Zollner. And why? Why would they decide that? The one juror who spoke out said the decision not to indict hinged on the possibility of self-defense, a statement Zollner apparently never made when he spoke to Detective Sergeant Todd Dockweiler, because that was the detective who questioned him basically immediately after this happened. He never said anything about this being self-defense. And it's just really weird to me that the jury knows his DNA evidence was on it. This killed Josiah. Even if it was an accidental stabbing, why do you have a kitchen knife on you? It's not like it's a pocket knife. You have a kitchen knife on you. It's not just a kitchen knife, it's a chef's knife. There's something really weird about that to me. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so the jury is also just fucking stupid. So, of course, Zollner maintains his innocence and had a civil suit brought against the city of Arcata that says his arrest, detention, and prosecution were unlawful and that he was defamed and his constitutional rights were violated. Oh, he's the victim. Because of course he would think he is. And if I'm not mistaken, I actually think he won that, which is absolutely disgusting. But going back to the findings of the National Police Foundation, remember what we talked about earlier, how they published a 67-page report about gross incompetence? Their report found that the commanding officer on the night of the stabbing had no specialized training in crime scene management, the lead investigator had no prior experience with homicides, and the site of the stabbing was only partially cordoned off. The suspect's car was allowed to be driven home. One witness changed her story 3 times, and key witnesses and suspects were allowed to leave the scene or communicate with one another. Zollner was also only interviewed for 15 minutes and the questions were not exploratory, and that Zollner never refused to answer any more additional questions. Like, they could have continued with the interview because he kind of said, no, I'm not going to answer your questions. They just stopped it after 15 minutes. And this was when he was questioned by Todd Dockweiler. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. And I believe that Todd Dockweiler was also the one who had, like, no fucking experience in this either. So, there we go. But Charmaine is trying to get a meeting with Attorney General Rob Bonta about taking up the case. I haven't heard anything else about it, but I saw that in the articles I was reading, so I wanted to include that she is still trying to get Zollner prosecuted or a trial of some sort going on. And she says, I know Josiah would have done the same thing. Stand in solidarity. It is a great feeling to know that the support is still there and they're not going to let this rest until we get justice, end quote. So Charmaine sued the city and police department alleging they violated her 14th Amendment right to equal protection under the law, that the investigation was inadequate, inept, and racially based. The city settled for $200,000, but they admitted no wrongdoing. They also created a mural of Josiah and donated $25,000 to a scholarship in his honor. But she says she has no plans to cash the $200,000 check. And I want to end with this quote because it felt very powerful to me. And she says, "I think it's blood money, and I will continue to say that," end quote. I 100% agree. That's blood money. They could not even admit that there was wrongdoing. The National Police Foundation found that there was wrongdoing, that things weren't done the way they were supposed to, and they could not. The city and the police department could not admit their own wrongdoing. They could not admit that they were at fault for this shitty investigation. They just threw some money at the situation and tried to call it good. And she's absolutely right saying that it's blood money. Like, this isn't going to bring her son back. The man, the boy, actually man, yeah, because he was of age at the time, that killed him is walking free. And he actually brought his own civil suit against the city of Arcata and won. I actually do believe he won. And it's disgusting that he got money from the situation when he murdered someone. I don't care about innocent until proven guilty. His DNA evidence was on the knife. A chef's knife. Who carries around a chef's knife? The chef knife that was missing from the bag of knives that Zollner and Leela had in their car. He was seen stabbing Josiah. There is absolutely no reason he should be free. And I hope that Rob Bonta or someone comes through for Charmaine and the family, and that they decide, you know what, we're going to prosecute Zollner. And I hope he goes to trial, and I hope he gets prison time. Because I personally don't think he should be free. Also, I think Leela starting a stupid fucking fight over an iPhone was fucking ridiculous. There might not have even been a fight that night between the two guys if she hadn't been a little bitch about her fucking iPhone, which was later found. They didn't steal her fucking phone. I just think it's so obvious that there was just racial bias here, and I want to know why they were rooting so hard for Zollner. Like, what's special about Zollner? Like, the police officers, what's going on there? You know what I'm saying? It just reeks of and it just reeks of negligence. Is the best thing I can say. It's absolutely upsetting. I am going to leave this here because this was my summarized version of the case for you. Danielle Hallen did a video on this case, and it's a really great video. You should definitely go watch it. But I will be keeping an eye on this. If anything happens with the case getting picked up again, I am going to report that to you guys. Like I said, I hope that something happens for the family. They deserve justice. We need to keep speaking about Josiah because what happened to him is absolutely disturbing. But thank you guys so much for listening to Josiah's story. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Bye, guys.